So it's been an interesting day on the internet, specifically because reviews and a ton of information released around the new Pokemon games, Scarlet and Violet. They're due out tomorrow, but reviews were not kind to these games, and it's actually going on to be a bit of a step back from Sword and Shield, and it's unfortunate because a lot of it comes down to the technical issues, and yes, that has led to Switch 2 trending online, and I figured we would talk a bit about that here today. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button. Helps out a ton. And if you're new to the Spawn Wave Plus channel, make sure you subscribe down below. First off, let's head over here. This is posted up on Twitter. There are many examples that were shown online of this game not performing well at all, and it is, I'm going to say, shockingly bad in some of these clips. I have not played the game myself. I will be picking it up tomorrow, and we'll check it out here in real time, my first impressions, so that should be fun. But take a look again at this. This went viral online very, very quickly, and you'll soon see why. As trying to capture Psyduck, yeah, that's it is rough. You see the bridge kind of pop in there. It's running as almost a slideshow at times, and this is apparently after the day one patch. I almost wonder what things would have been like before that patch that I'm sure had some bug fixes or improvements that had taken place there for the frame rate and the graphical style and all these different things. But now it's gotten to the point where people, of course, are trying to figure out what went wrong with what's a very lucrative intellectual property in Pokemon. You figure the games themselves would be up to a certain standard, and at the bare minimum would be functional and not have performance be a serious problem with these reviews. I mean, it was brought up by every single review for the most part that I saw, where performance was detracting from the experience. I mean, seriously, it's knocked down several points on most of these reviews, and right now, Pokemon Sword and Shield coming in below Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, which is a shame because the other parts of the reviews where they talk about the game itself see a very promising future for the Pokemon franchise as long as it's running at more than 15 frames per second. Anyway, this obviously had Switch 2 trending online because now everyone's looking at, okay, the way to fix this is to introduce more powerful hardware. And I will admit, I believe that, sure, Scarlet and Violet with a more powerful Switch of some kind, whether it's a revision like a Pro or even a next-generation Switch 2 that has backwards compatibility that is more capable, would probably run Scarlet and Violet better. I think it's hard to argue that it would run exactly the same. Do you think Scarlet and Violet would run like this on the PS5? Probably not. It would probably run at least somewhat better. That said, I think there are three major variables here, and we'll discuss which one is the most likely to improve. Those three variables would be Game Freak, the Pokemon Company, and the Switch. So the Pokemon Company, to me, represents the Pokemon cycle, which essentially means this game is not getting delayed. It will not ever be delayed. We have it set out, and it has to come out at this certain point because there are things even larger than the game that are releasing, and we tie it all together. They obviously have a ton of merchandise, the trading cards, Pokemon Go, which is a very good moneymaker for them, the anime, all kinds of things outside of that. So there's a lot that has to tie together to launch a new generation of Pokemon. And the games, as long as they don't explode on impact, which I'll admit this is cutting it kind of close, it would still come out. And they do it in what appears to be 2.5 to 3 year development cycles. So that's variable number one, the Pokemon cycle. Variable number two would be Game Freak. Now, the Pokemon Company is made up of three different companies. We have Creatures, Game Freak, and Nintendo. The problem we run into is Game Freak being part owner of the Pokemon Company. I don't think is going to step away from being the main developers for the Pokemon franchise because it's essentially all they have. Like, they do Pokemon. That's like 99% of their portfolio. They've attempted to step outside of it a few times. Hasn't been great for them. So Pokemon's essentially tied at the hip for Game Freak at this time. And they've struggled with the shift from handheld to larger 3D development on the home console with the Switch. There is no way around it. It's been it's been tough for them since the Switch had launched. I will say Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, it was simpler looking. It wasn't this open world style or anything like that. It looked well enough, I would say, compared to what we're seeing right now, and at least performed well enough. But with Game Freak already being on a bit of a time crunch with the Pokemon cycle and them struggling when it comes to some of this 3D development, and then saying, oh, we're going to go open world with the Pokemon franchise. Whew. Well, we're seeing the results of that now. The last variable would be the Switch hardware itself going into now, well, it's going to be its 7th year next year, right? It'll complete its 6th birthday in first week of March. I look across the board here at these three variables, and the one that's most likely to change is the Switch hardware. So technically it makes sense why people would call for the Switch 2 or whatever, because we see games come out, and we are getting more and more of those games that tend to struggle, even if they are from Nintendo themselves or partners with Nintendo. You have good examples like Xenoblade Chronicles 3, although that seems to be like the top talent at Monolith Soft, which are also tied to Nintendo and the Zelda team. And there's a lot of talent going on there, a lot of money and investment being put into it, because most likely the upscaling techniques that they used for Xenoblade Chronicles 3 probably going to find their way into the new Zelda game. So it makes sense why something like Xenoblade Chronicles 3 would get quite a bit of backing for a franchise that's not going to go on to sell 10 or 20 million or anything like that. And Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is very impressive for the Switch, but it's certainly not the norm. It is not. I would also look at something like Monster Hunter Rise, and the RE engine just continues to put in work, and Capcom has shown that they are getting better and better with that engine, so that being another impressive one. But then we also get things like Bayonetta 3, that the frame rate is all over the place, the image quality isn't great, and then the environments are very bland, and that took 5 years or so to develop from Platinum, again, in collaboration with Nintendo. And we are just hearing more and more of those stories going forward, to where there is that question of, is it time for the Switch 2? And seeing this latest example with Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, it's just not surprising that would be the immediate reaction. And I'm not sure what Game Freak can do from here. I really don't know if they come back and patch this to within an acceptable level of performance, or if we really do have to hope that there is some sort of Switch Pro in the works, or next-gen Switch that comes out, I don't know, next year, so we can at least play Pokemon Scarlet and Violet at 20 frames per second or something. It's rough right now with Game Freak and this release for a franchise that is worth a lot of money. You would kind of expect this to come out in better shape. But I am curious where some of you land on this. Are you thinking more towards it being Game Freak, or more towards it being the aging hardware in the Switch? Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.